Hi everybody, this next vlog is about a Lekala top that I was asked if I could show how you put it together and by one of my viewers, and I said yes, and I've done a little sew along showing you how I went about putting it together. The thing that I decided to do was I have a serger, which is here, an overlocker or serger, but when I was a lot younger, sergers didn't exist, and I just had a machine that used to do zigzag and straight stitch. So the majority, in fact all of the garment that I've made has been done with straight stitch and on a couple of occasions zigzag. So I talk you through how you can sew knitted fabrics using a straight stitch and a little bit of zigzag. So if you've got just a straight stitch machine, you can still make a top like this. So enjoy. I hope you like the finished product. The pattern I'm going to do this time is the Lekala asymmetrical knit blouse. It says a blouse, I'm doing a jumper, and it's sewing pattern number 4885. Basically there are 3 colours that it's showing you there. You could have 4 if you wanted to by having a different colour on the back, but I'm going to stick to 3 colours, and the three colours I'm going to have is for that arm and that part of the bodice, and that I'm going to do this turquoise jersey. That's looking a very light colour, but it's not a bad colour. It's like it's a darker turquoise. And for this piece here, I'm going to do this, which is going to be, I'm going to have the cable going down that way. I'm going to have it slightly off because with that should be the straight of the grain, and you would normally have your cable going that way, but I'm going to have it so that it's going on an angle. I think that might look quite nice. And this bit here, I just happen to have a small piece of scrap, and I'm going to use this one. So the 3 colours combined, this is just a small piece of scrap that I've got from left over from a previous project that I did. I think it was a jumpery t-shirt, and so I've got these 3 colours. That one is darker than that, and I just figured, although there's no oh yes, that colour there is between, it's actually a colour that's between those 2, so it kind of slightly ties in, but I think it's going to look okay. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to pull the pattern pieces out, which I have done, and you can see these are the pattern pieces. So this is your back, that bit there is your back, so that's going to be made of this. This is what my back's going to be, and this one is which was, that's upside down. That part of the pattern is upside down because that should be like that, and that part is going to be the cable part, which I'm going to have, as I say, the cable is going to run like that. That's your straight of grain. I think I can still get away with a diagonal one there. And then this one is my other half, which is, let me just show you, this back piece there is this piece here, and I'm going to do that with it. And then this is the sleeve. There are 2 sleeves. I'm going to do both the same colour, and they will be this turquoise one. And then lastly that one, which is that little piece there, and that's actually this way. It should be there this way. This is probably where a lot of people get confused, but that's the way it's going to be. If you look at the pattern, that's that bit there like that, and that's it there, and that's going to be made out of this jungly type fabric. They're all more or less the same weight. That's about the same weight as that one. This is a slight bit, actually it looks thicker, but it's probably a little bit lighter in weight, but I think it's because it hasn't got much backing to it. This one's like it's like a French terry knit, and so is this one. This is a French terry knit. So that one is more of a satiny kind of knit. So yes, so our next stage is to cut them out. So this one in turquoise, that one in cable knit. Don't forget it's going to be that way, the pattern. So my cable knit's going to be going in a diagonal, and then this one, which is the other half of the sleeve of the front bodice, that's the sleeve. I need 2 of those, and then this one here, I need 1 of that little triangle. Well, I have a slight problem with this because this was a last half metre that I bought from, oh, I've forgotten her name, from behind the pink door. Beyond the pink door, I can never get that right. And the pattern is too long. I've got too much pattern and not enough fabric. It's only half a metre. So, what I thought I might do is I might change this slightly and probably have a diagonal going down there and have one piece of the cable going that way and the other going that way, possibly going along the diagonal. I'll just work it out and then I'll let you see what I've done. Okay, well, I don't want to have to cut the pattern, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half there. Right, I've folded the paper back on itself so that you can't see any of what I've cut in half there. I don't want to have cut on it at the moment. And I'm going to see if that'll fit on this fabric. Basically folded all this paper in, and I've done it like this because so that you can't see the paper underneath. And this is the bottom half of that piece of fabric. What I want to do is I want to get the grain going like that. So I might go up to there and I'll get the grain, but I have to remember that because I put a fold there, I've got to make this an extra centimetre along the top there because that won't be catered for. So I'm going to have to cut with an extra centimetre along there. And I almost made the mistake of working on double fabric. I don't need double fabric. All the pieces that are on the front garment are all single fabric. So I'm going to make that into single fabric and only cut one piece of this. Don't forget, an extra centimetre along the top. And what I'm doing is I'm working the line down here against the cable pattern. So you can see that I have a piece of, I've unfolded this paper and you can see where the top half is and how I've got the bottom half. So now I need to fold this back up, this paper back up on that fold, and just cut fabric to the top half, but allow a centimetre here so that these two seams can be joined together in the right place. So I'm trying to find a nice shape so that when I have that seam it can go up that way. But it's not going to match. You see that there, even if I had that there and it matched there, it's not going to match there. It's all going to be out. So I might have to just put it with that and have it in the wrong position, or try a different permutation. Let's have a look. I think that permutation might work a bit better. And so this pattern coming down here and allowing an extra centimetre, going up there, pinning it up and cutting around there might actually work. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Not sure if it will, but we'll soon find out. Okay, so before I do anything, you can see that I'm going, this is where the seam is on this side front, and I'm going to have to join that seam and try and match the cable pattern. Fingers crossed. And I've just pinned it, but I think it's going to work. I think we are going to be able to be all right with it. I need to sew it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it probably that way and top stitch along the bottom there, or press it. I'll try it pressed and then see what it does, and if that works then fine. If not, I might top stitch it along there. Well, that's turned out quite nice. It's just a little bit, oh no, it's not too bad. Match there, match there, match there, but slightly out here and slightly out there. I'm going to press it now. I'm going to press it with like that, with the seam going this way, and I might top stitch it, but if I top stitch it, obviously it's going to be that side. And if I do that, if I do the top stitch like that along there, then I'll trim this under one so there's not too much thickness there. Now you'll notice that just temporarily I've done a straight stitch, just to see whether it would work, because if it wasn't going to work then I would have to pull it out. I will probably do one of those stretch straight stitches rather than a zigzag. I could go on the serger, but I can't be bothered, to be honest. I sometimes find that it's just as easy to do it on your sewing machine than it is on the serger. This here has got, when I sewed it I gave it some stretch, so I could get away with that if I wanted to. It's got a good bit of stretch, so that shouldn't be much of a problem. Right, so what I've done is I've joined that there. I pressed the seam towards the bottom, and then I top stitched along there, and then I did a second top stitch just above it. I simply used the ordinary straight stitch, but I pulled a little bit so that if it pulls it won't snap. Now then, on the other side I've got a little bit of spare. I actually trimmed the under when I put the seams this way, I trimmed the seam that was underneath, a bit like a French seam type of thing. I'm going to trim the top of there so I haven't got all this loose stuff here. And excuse the cat hairs, she's on the other side of my sewing machine, and when the fabric went to the back, guess who put the white hairs on. So that's been pressed, and as I say, I'll trim that away. When you press, when you've got this kind of fabric, don't press from this side, press from this side. I used a cloth over the top to stop it from making it shiny. Put a pressing cloth on the top, or a piece of cotton fabric over the top, and then press it, and that will make it lie a lot better. It stops especially knitted fabrics from getting a shine, and it looks a lot better. So I have a side front in one layer of fabric. That's the one where I had to put the seam down there. That's my side front. I've got two sleeves, which are there, two sleeves, and I have a back which is on the fold, so that is the back. It's the only single hole piece that covers that's there, so that's your back. And this is your sleeve. Your sleeve is going to go here on both sides, like that. That's going to be your sleeve. And move that out of the way. And then this is going to be your front to the other side. That is your other side, and this is your bottom. Now, first of all, you might think, hold on a minute, that up there doesn't match this here, but it's because if you look at the pattern, the neckline is staggered. So what happens is that up there is your top shoulder, and this comes down here, and that matches your bottom end. So you then have this joining here, and then you've got that staggered neck like that, which is just like the picture on there, your staggered neck. Can you see? So the next part that you do is you're going to sew this blue to the brown, and so that will be this seam. If I take this paper off here, it will be that to this turquoise above there. So I'll take this off and I'll let you see. That little T is to tell you that that's where that goes there. That's showing you where the neckline is going to be. So when it's all joined together, these two here at the bottom should match. So we take this off, and I'm going to pin the top to the bottom. Those of you who watch my my vlogs quite regularly will know that I like to print my patterns on very, very light paper. This is what you call bank paper. It's not easy to get. It's 50-gram weight, and the normal ones for A4 paper is about 70, but because it's 50, it's quite light and it's quite see-through, and it doesn't take up as much paper, and when you join it together you get a nice light printed paper. And quite honestly, I'd much prefer to be putting patterns together like this and getting a big tissue pattern, having to cut it all out. I know that this is going to be to my measurements. So where that little notch was on the neckline, I've just gone and made a little cut into the fabric like that, so that I know exactly where it is. And if you've never watched my vlogs before, I pack my my PDF patterns into a very fine cellophane wrapping paper bag, which has a little folded bit on the top, but I just tuck that in, and it's quite thin, and when the whole lot is in, it doesn't take up much room. It's very thin, quite thin. So these are my 3 pattern pieces, and you'll see what I've done is I've matched the notch there. That little notch there is just roughly there where that neck is. I haven't sewn this together yet, so obviously there's a little bit of an extension there, but once that's sewn to there, that should pull this bit up. So this has to be sewn to that first, right sides together. I'm going to do a straight stitch just the same way as I've done that, and then I'm going to top stitch it again because I like doing that. So I've pinned that. There you go, that's what it's going to look like. I've pinned that, and you can see it's just going to nicely meet there. Sewing along there, and I'm going to press it so that the seam is this way and do the same procedure as there. I'll show you what it's like when it's done. The other thing I like about using the straight stitch is if things go wrong, for example this thread has snapped on the top. I don't know why it snapped on the top, but I've pulled this fabric out. I'm going to have to rethread the sewing machine, but here it was snapped there, and so I've pulled it, and by pulling it I can break the thread, and it makes it easier to unpick, and then I can start again. So that will unpick very easily. It will just draw along. See the reason why it snapped. If you look at this thread, I can focus on it for you. Let's put it on there. You might be able to see that it's actually gone very thin. It's actually a fault of the thread that's caused it to snap. It's not Gutermann's that I'm using. I'm using some thread that I got free with my machine, and to be fair, my machine is now, this one is it was brand new at the time, but I think it's at least 4 or 5 years old. So the thread has been in my possession for about 4 or 5, and heaven knows how long, by the supplier. So what it's done is it's frayed it. And that might actually be where they joined certain threads in the factory, but that's why it snapped. I use a Teflon foot, and can you see the black mark on the right? And you might just see a little mark on the inside of the foot, which I am trying to keep in line with my stitching. Yeah, that little line there, that little dot mark there, it's not very clear, but it's some permanent felt tip that I put on there, and I'm trying to keep that in line with that. Sorry, I'm doing it through the camera. Trying to keep it in line with that so that I get a second row quite close to it. So I now have 2 rows of stitching on that side. The seam is facing downwards towards the bottom of the garment, and I'm going to trim this excess off. I'm going to trim all that off. So I now have my 2 halves, and they match quite well. Actually, funny enough, I hadn't realised, but that seems very close to that one, which is kind of trendy. It might be a downside, because if they don't match, it's where your eye goes to. It's where your eye is taken to if it doesn't match. But even if it's slightly out, I'm not bothered, because this is a good way to use scrap fabric. So the instructions say, sew the front inset to the left front, which is that bit to there, and serge and press towards the bottom. We've done that. Then sew the right shoulder seam and serge and press towards the back. So that's the right. So we take the back of the fabric and we put the shoulder seams together, sew those, serge it, and then press it towards the back. So this is your back, and I'm going to put the right shoulder seam, which goes there, onto there. So the right shoulder seam, don't forget this goes at an angle, so it's not going to be straight. This is where we're going to sew along this shoulder seam. I've just laid it on top, I haven't matched it yet, but I'll put the pins on and I'll sew along there, press it towards the back because this is the back bit. Press it towards the back, serge it. I don't think I'll bother serging, I'll just top stitch and do the same procedure as I've been doing here because I like it. I also want to show you that this is the seam, that's the shoulder seam, and this is before I've pressed it. It's quite lumpy and bumpy, and if you press it with a cloth on the other side, you will find that that will flatten out a lot better. So this is the before, and I'll show you the after. And that's the after. It is slightly bumpy there, and the reason for that is because there's a curve in the shoulder, so it's not totally flat. So there is a curve, but it's a lot better when it's pressed than when it wasn't. The next stage is sew the left front to the right front and serge the seam allowance, serging the left side of the neckline at the same time. Sew the left shoulder seam and serge. Would I do it that way? Let me just think about it. This is where the instructions and I part company, because it says to sew this to this and then do the shoulders, and you've got to serge around your neck. I'm going to do this differently because I'm going to do the shoulders here first. Then once I've got the shoulders here, I'm going to do a bias neckline all the way around there to there, and then I'll turn that in, and then that will be a tidier neckline, and then I'll sew down here. So you now have your two shoulder seams sewn up, and you've got this gap down here. Now I'm fancying on doing a contrast type of binding around there, and the contrast will probably be this, just to tie everything in together. Now this is, as I said, it's jersey. It stretches along the most stretch is along the rib. You see the rib? Well, the most stretch is from left to right. This is all I have left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some strips, and then I'm going to sew them together. They don't have to be diagonally sewn, but I might do that anyway, just because it'll make the seams lie a bit better. So I want enough to be able to go round there and round down to there, down to where that cut is. So I've cut two strips. They're about what width are they? Let me see. They are approximately 1.5 inches or 3.5 centimeters. I'm going to cut that at an angle and that at an angle, and I'm going to join it. I've actually cut 3 strips, but I think I might get away with 2 for around the neck. So we'll join this together and then we'll take it from there. So I have this, I've joined it there at an angle, at a diagonal, and I've pressed the seam, and now I'm going to pin right side to right side and start at the top here and go right the way around, right side to right side, bring it down there to there, and then I'll turn it in on itself. So this will actually be hidden in a sense, but if it isn't hidden, it's a nice contrast. And you'll see that as I'm pinning it, I'm stretching this facing a little bit further than the actual garment, so it's actually got little hollows there, but when I sew, that will pull it and it'll actually make it fit better. So the facing is pinned from there all the way around and comes round, and it stops just where that split is. So I'm now going to sew it. I'm going to start at that end, work my way around, come to this end, and I'm just going to stop here. Stop exactly on that cut. Right, so I've pressed this, and now I think what I might do is sew this seam up first, and then I'll finish the bias off, because I think that will finish it off nicer. And I'm debating whether to have a little bit of bias showing or not, or whether to completely close it in under that, like that. I'll come to that in the end, but I'm going to pin this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the bottom edge, right sides together, and then pin it all the way up to where that split is there, and stop there. So I'm going to start by pinning along here, right sides together, that to there, pinning it and working my way up to here, up to the top. Now you see that's where the joint is there. So if I can get that to match there, if I can get that to match where that is, it might look a bit better. So if I put that there like that, so that that is right on where it crosses over there. Maybe it's a bit further. There. Yeah, it crosses over there. So we'll go like that to there. Right sides here. And we go right up to there. And that's where we stop. So, to there. I'm going to put a little pin there to let me know that that's where everything has to stop. And I'll have to make sure that all that fabric is pushed away. And here, this is going to be pinned. There. So, we have, if you can see, oh, can I make you taller? There, like that. Okay. We have this front seam, and I'm going to start there and sew up, make sure that that crosses, that meets there, and then carry on up, and I'm going to get to there, and I'll do a forward reverse and stop there. Well, so I've sewn that and it's gone really well. You can see it's actually joined nicely there. I haven't pressed it yet, but I'm going to press it so that these seams are going this way. And then I'm going to top stitch in the same way with the 2 rows of top stitch, just to smarten it up. My kind of thing. I just like it's a remnant of I like Jean Muir clothes, and she always did stretch fabrics and she always top stitched them, and I always thought they looked lovely. They just looked more professional finish. So I'm going to press it, push the seams that way when I press it, top stitch both rows. I'm going to leave the neck, and I'll leave the neck until the end because that's nicely finished just exactly on there. So I might either turn that in there, or I might have a little bit of a border around like that. I'll work that out when the time comes. But the next stage after that, once I've done that, will be, in my opinion, to put the sleeves in. I always find that stretch fabrics work better if I always put the sleeves in first, and then I do the side seam. So I'm gonna do that first, and then I'm gonna put the sleeves in. Right, so there you go. I have sewn all the way up there, and I've top stitched. I've got a spare thread there. It did snap. I had problem with my thread snapping again. I'm sure it's the thread rather. I've rethreaded it completely. If your thread keeps snapping, rethread the whole of your machine again, and that might help. So now I'm going to open that out. I'm going to take the sleeves and I'm going to sew the sleeves together. With the sleeves, there doesn't seem to be a front and a back version. There's no marks, so you can put it anywhere you like. It doesn't really matter, but it has to be right size together. So we're going to pin that to the sleeve to the bodice. Right, so I've got the sleeves in there, and all that's left to do is I'm hoping you can see there. Where am I there? So I've got these seams. I'm just got to right sides together, go up the sleeve seam and down the side, and then turn the hems up on the cuffs, hem up on the bottom, and the binding on the top. So we'll get, and then we're done. So we're on the homeward stretch. Right, so I've over edged this seam with a zigzag stitch, and as you can see it's all waffly, it's all wavy, but when I press that with a cloth, that will flatten it completely and you'll be able to see what it looks like. That's the sleeve, and this is the side seam. So once that's pressed, you'll be surprised what it looked like. So as you can see, by pressing it, it's taken a lot of the wobble off the fabric. So now I'm going to turn up the hem to the sleeves, and I'm going to turn up the hem of the bottom. Now you see what's happening, it's curling. So what I tend to do is I turn it up and sew a straight stitch. I turn it up a very, very narrow hem. Might pay just to stitch it if you want by hand, but obviously some people don't want to do that. So just what I tend to do is I sew it just with a tiny little hem, and then once I've got that and I press it, then I turn it over and do a second hem like that, and that often helps. I have tried putting bias binding on, and I still find it curls up. So this is the latest attempt. I watched a video on this and they say turn it up a little bit, stitch it, and then turn it up again and stitch it again, and that should hold it in place a lot better. So let's see what that looks like. This is the sleeve, and I basically turned it over like that and started stitching from the outside, 2 rows of stitches using my little markers on my foot. And now I've got those 2 rows of stitches done, I'll turn it over and I'll trim close with the scissors close to that edge. So that's one sleeve done, and we'll go and do the second one. And what I tend to do sometimes, because it's a sleeve, I sometimes don't pin. I just make sure it's nicely level with that I can see through there that the seam is perfectly is all the same width. And I put my foot down. My stitch on mine is very wide because I don't know, for some reason my stitch length isn't working very well, so I've currently got it on 5, and then I'll set it away. I tend to run the first one I try to keep close to the foot close to the edge of there. So away we go with that one. And the fact that it's round this arm means that it's pulling the fabric more than it should do, and I'm just getting that fabric just the same distance away. I can see through the shadow that it's actually pulling a bit too much, so we'll pull it back up a bit there. Go around a bit, pull it in a bit more there. Right the way around till I come back to where I started from. Stop there, and I've got to untwist this bit because it's obviously twisted. Stop there, past that notch, and lift my needle up. Excuse my hand, move that to there, and I make sure that this is in line with that black mark on there, and then I know that this is going to run along there. So here we go, keeping an eye. I'm not watching that, I'm watching this. I'm not watching the needle there, it's this bit you've got to watch to make sure that that stays in line with that. And then off. And so now I turn, this is the cuff, turn it the other way, and basically I then cut my scissors, get my scissors like that, and cut very close to the stitching on the top row. and I work my way right round until I've got it all cut off. There you go. That's my my sleeve done, and pull it and it doesn't break the thread. So here I have stitched the just turned in the hem. This is the bottom hem, just turned it in, and you can see I've got this fraying here. This bit's fraying, that bit's not so bad, that bit's not so bad, but it's curling, and the other bit there is curling a bit more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut close to those stitches, and then once I've cut close to the stitches, I'm going to turn it up about 2 centimeters, and I'm going to stitch it again, and I'm hoping that by doing that it will make it lie a lot better at the bottom. So we'll try that. So I've got this pinned here and turned over, and I'm actually sewing it from the front. I'm basically feeling where that edge is, where that edge of fabric is there, and I'm sewing just within the inside of it, just within that inside. I can feel it's running along there, and I'm sewing just within the inside, and I'm getting a nice neat stitch there. You can see it's actually just inside that one, and then I'm going to do a double row again. I'm going to go, because I don't have a cover stitch machine, not all of us do, and this is just another way of doing a cover stitch. This is the way I do it, the way I like to do it anyway. And now I've got right the way around to the other end. I'm back to the beginning here, and then lift my foot up and move it in. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to lift it up and I move it in, so the foot is following the stitching on the side there, and so my eye isn't going to be here, it's going to be following, keeping the foot next to that stitching all the way. And you can see how it is doing a double row there. I should turn it that way because then you can see better. Okay, so all that's left now is this binding that I've got on the front, and the more I look at it, the more I think it would be nice to have a contrast, so that actually will go like that. But obviously I don't have a lot of fabric there, and because it's a knitted fabric, I can do it without worrying about turning it under. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over. I haven't trimmed that down. I'm going to fold it over, pin it in the in that ditch there. Can you see the ditch there? And I'm going to work my way around, pin it all in the ditch, and the other side will be just like that. And the awkward bit will be up this end where we turn it, where we meet the crossover. But we'll do that in a second. You can watch what I do. I probably should have cut this a bit wider, but I think I'll still get away with it. Or I could have trimmed this down, but I don't wish to trim it down, so I'm just going to make sure that it's stretching over that area. There, pin it, and go to the next bit, over there, and pin. Sorry about the dog barking. We have a dog that lives in the bungalow next door. It's a, what kind of dog is it? It's a schnauzer, but it barks an awful lot. It's a very noisy schnauzer. this is also in a bit of darkness. I've brightened up the screen so hopefully you can see what's going on, because it's a very hot day today. It's a Sunday, it's one of our hot days, and I'm trying to keep the sun from being going into the house too much. Now, what I thought I might do here might be to finish that off there and have that join there like that. I don't know if you can see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to sew right up to that point. I'm going to sew all the way around, and I'm going to end up at this point so that my stitching stops here. And then I shall turn it back on itself and then sew to there. But I'll show you what it's like when it's done. Okay, so I've got this on here. I've sewn right through, and I've actually sewn in the ditch down there, and on the other side it's like that. I was debating whether I should trim that off, but it's not rolling, and I don't know whether I should just leave it. I think I'll leave it and see what happens on the first wash, and if that curls, then I might trim it right down. But here I've left a little piece here. You can see I've gone right up to there, up to where the joint is there. And what I thought I might do is trim this bit off here to about 1 centimetre overlap. So we'll get the scissors and we shall cut about 1 centimetre overlap. Cut it there, right? And then I'm going to turn that in on itself like that. It obviously means it's going to have that there, but I'm going to turn it, and then I'm going to overlap it there like that. And I will hand sew that bit. That's the only bit that I'm going to hand sew. And I'm going to pin that like that, just so you can see what I mean. Oops, no, it's not in the fabric. It hasn't got into. It has to go into the bottom fabric as well. And that is in the bottom fabric. So there, if I put something behind there that you can see, if I put that there, you can see that this is where the joint's going to be. And so I'll hand sew. Where's my little thing? I'm going to just hand sew along the edge there to catch it, and probably along the bottom, and probably along this edge here. Now tidy this up as well, because that shouldn't be there. That ought to be there. Hang on a second. Right, oh, right, that's that. Now I need to trim this bit off first. I need to trim. I've got the centimetre on that one, but I need to trim this bit off here. This bit that's coming along from there to there. I need to trim it because that's too much. So I'm going to trim it almost up to the edge like that. There. So that is trimmed. And then this one, I'm just going to turn it back on itself like that, cross it over like that, and then pin it down like that. Bring that back up there. That can hold it in place while I'm sewing. And I'm just going to do a little catching stitch there, a cat stitch along the bottom, and it's a little bit tidier there. It still has a bit of fabric there, which I could probably even trim some more. Just to get rid of it. Let's trim it some more. Perhaps another couple of millimeters. Let's get a hold of it. There. So that is now going to go like that. That turns in on itself on there. Pin that down there. There. Oh, I haven't caught it underneath. There. And then I'll catch that and catch along there, and that is a little bit tidier there. If I have to, I'll tidy it up on the inside. Just to tidy that edge up there. That bit there can be tidied up. But that's down there and along there, and then that will lie like that.